Joanne, thank you. Good morning, everyone around the world. And thank you, Joanne, and to the Institute for asking me to speak to you today about how the UN principles for responsible banking are being implemented by banks. As Joanne said, my name is Ollie Holbourn, and as Director of Strategy and Ventures, I am delighted to be here representing NatWest. And like many of you, I look forward to when events such as these are in person. Our relationship as an organization with the Chartered Banker Institute is as one of the founding banks that set up the Institute. And so our relationship goes back to 1875. We're very proud that our frontline colleagues have professional accreditation within 24 months of joining our team, and that has helped us to have been awarded corporate chartered status. But on to the topic of the day, and first some context. So I'm going to talk about why I think the UN principles are important and how and why we should be implementing them. I'll also touch on some of the initiatives NatWest have introduced and give you my thoughts on implementation ahead of the panel discussion. Since banks failed society, in many cases literally during the global financial crisis, a great deal of consideration has been given to how we make banking function better for society. We were reminded again during the pandemic of the fragility of the banking system, given the level of support across the world that governments had to provide. Even in an environment where banks are much safer, have much more capital, and have arguably improved their level of service to the real economy significantly over the last decade. We also know the impacts of COVID will be long felt. The British Academy refers to the next 10 years as the COVID decade. Minouche Shafik, the economist, has written a fabulous book entitled What We Owe Each Other, A New Social Contract, which talks about how we might deal with the after effects of the pandemic, where, at a practical level, it has impacted the young, the vulnerable, and ethnic minorities much more than others, highlighting again the increase in inequality in our society that needs addressing. And then, when you consider climate change, perhaps the biggest challenge and opportunity of our lives, it is clear that banks need to align with the vision society has set out for its future in the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. So at NatWest, we believe the UN principles for responsible banking are an important contributor to how banks can be responsible and do well by doing good. On a more personal note, I have 3 young children, and as I get older, I definitely feel a greater responsibility towards leaving them in a society and on a planet that is still full of life and opportunity. After all, there is no planet B. So we all need to play a role in helping protect the world we live in. And the role banks have to play as financial intermediaries is, in my view, a significant one. So some thoughts now on implementation. And there are 3 points I'd like to make about implementation of the principles. The first is infancy, the second is flexibility, and the third is commerciality. So on infancy to begin with, the UN principles of responsible banking are still young. Created in 2019, they've been around for a little over 2 years. So I feel we are very much in the foothills of implementation, with quite a long way still to climb. While we must follow the steps to have the principles embedded by 2024, I think it will be several more years until we really know what good implementation looks like, and we are able to see the tangible effects of change. The second point I wanted to make is flexibility. The principles-based approach with the 3-step process of impact, analysis, target setting, and reporting gives banks flexibility as to how they implement the 6 principles. And I think this is really important for 2 reasons. First of all, it encourages healthy learning among peers. And secondly, I think it fosters competition to progress with that journey towards sustainability and responsible banking as soon and as effectively as you can. That said, fully integrating the principles into business strategy is both an opportunity and a challenge, particularly given those who invest in banks are on their own journeys in terms of the importance of responsible banking and all matters related to ESG in their investment decision-making process. And at NatWest, we took our first pass at reporting on our integration in March this year with what we referred to as our Purpose in Action document. And we will look to improve on that in coming years. And the last point I wanted to make is commerciality, or the commercial imperative. My belief is organizations of significant size, be they banks, or perhaps in time, large non-financial corporations that take these principles and implement them well, will over time attract a lower cost of capital because their earnings will be more resilient and therefore deserve a higher multiple. We, as banks, I think, are some way from providing investors with the information they need to determine if a bank is truly responsible and whether it therefore justifies that premium rating and lower cost of capital. Finally, I wanted to give you a few reflections from inside a bank. So what is our approach on implementation at NatWest? I think first to say culturally, we are approaching it with an open mind and a willingness to learn and collaborate. One key pillar of our strategy is innovation and partnerships, because we believe we can only succeed in partnership with others, particularly around big societal issues like climate change. Behind all of this is our purpose, which is to champion potential and to help people, families, and businesses to thrive. Our purpose was shaped closely by working for Blueprint for Better Business, which is an independent charity which aims to create a better society through better business. And the UN principles will help us, I believe, and those in the banking industry become more purposeful. Being purposeful to us, I think, is best described by two ideas. First of all, making decisions based on a broad view of stakeholders, as per the Principle 4. And we do this by asking ourselves, are we being honest and fair with customers and suppliers? Are we being a good citizen? Are we being a responsible and responsive employer? And are we being a guardian for future generations? The second idea is really trying to move towards building better long-term relationships with our customers, even in a digital world, by serving our customers with products and services when they need them during their lives at fair and reasonable prices. Our purpose-led strategy aims to deliver longer-term sustainable performance and seeks to accelerate social value in areas where we believe we can make a meaningful contribution. In our case, we've chosen three areas: by helping try to minimize the impact of climate change, by championing enterprise, and by supporting learning inside and outside the bank. And very, very briefly, a few of our initiatives. On the learning side, we are proud to be supporting social mobility through our Career Sense program that will help young people become more employable. On the climate side, we're a founding member of GFANZ, we're financial sponsor to COP, and we're really trying to practically help our clients transition to a net zero economy by reducing their emissions, but sensibly and over time. And for a bit of fun, for those of you old enough to remember Top Trumps, COP Trumps, which is being developed through a competition in schools across England, will be landing at a venue near you very soon. And then finally, on enterprise, we are supporting as many women as we can on the back of the Rose of You through specific funding, mentorship, focused events, and support to help set up more great businesses for the future. Is our approach to implementation the right one? I think so, and I hope so, but I don't know so. Our stakeholders are the better judges of that over time. What I can tell you is that it is authentic. It comes from the top, so from our chairman, Sir Howard Davis, Alison Rose, our chief executive, and the executive committee all the way down. I'll also add that I think it's a never-ending journey, and it's a gradual path to self-improvement. We will be judged, as ever, by our actions and not by our words. So, in conclusion, the UN principles are a force for good, and the ethical and business case for implementing them is clear, although implementation is in its early phases. But they form part of a rich patchwork of things, helping banks and financial institutions regain trust with people, families, and society. That's why we are proud members and signatories of the UN PRB, and we also support the UN Global Compact and have signed up to the principles of responsible investment. While the first pass implementation of the PRB is a 5-year plan, it will take many years until we determine what good really looks like on implementation. During that time, we need to be open to learn from one another and to continue to ask what is working and what isn't, changing course and pivoting as often as we think is necessary to meet what society requires of us. So today's panel is a great way to work together and tackle that implementation element head on. So with that, I will say thank you to Joanne and a very big thank you again to the Chartered Banker Institute for inviting me to speak.